following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds-International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both a player's and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning, and with me, as always, my brother from another mother, Mr. Christopher Holmes. How you doing, homie?
I'm doing pretty good. Did you say Spanishy Flight Games? Did you?
I might have said Fantasy.
No hablo. No hablo, buddy.
It was fantasy. See, I can't even say it again. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I'm full because I made some pulled pork yesterday on my grill and finishing it up. Yeah, man, took about 6-7 hours. Dude, would you the picture you sent me, man? Whew,
so
that was good.
My fiance's birthday was this weekend, so I won't tell the world how old she is, but she's a lovely woman in her prime. And she, her birthday, she has this dish that we used to go to a restaurant in our town here that closed down, and so when they closed down, I asked the chefs how to make the dish.
Oh, cool!
Because it was her favorite dish there, and. So, and I also kind of did a little bit of internet research to figure out some other things to do with it. But anyhow, it's whitefish Grenoble. It's you take fresh catch lake whitefish, you pan fry it, and then you make this Grenoble sauce that goes over the top of it, and it's so good. It's got lemon,
really good,
tomatoes, capers, and a little bit of garlic, minced garlic in it.
We might have to do a frickin' a cooking podcast now.
She loved it. She ate all the leftovers.
Nice.
So
that's good.
Yeah, it was a good time. She had but yeah, I had a good cooking story this week.
Yeah, and I signed me up for a order of that.
Yeah,
that looked good, dude.
Yeah, it didn't take much work to make. It's really good. So
let's see.
I'm sad.
I know. It's just us two.
I know.
I feel naked again. Don't you?
Naked and exposed without our Stefan.
I know. He keeps us on our toes, for sure.
Well, he wanted to visit our friend Daryl, who's visiting him out of town. So instead of recording with us this week, we decided to do our final show about... before we put out the document about Primordial Machina.
Exactly. So we don't have any news this week. I went on the Fantasy Flight, and the last article was March 22nd when they put out the what do you call it? When they put out the free adventure for Android. And I know they had released, Worlds of Android. And I know there's an update to that up on Drive-Thru RPG. I just downloaded the update to that. I don't know when that updated, but I had an older version of it. Yeah, so nothing real exciting as far as news goes. But I'm hoping they will announce, what is it? Tannhauser. Hint, hint, hint. FFG, if anybody's listening.
That would be cool.
That would be pretty good.
I don't know. They've seemed to poured a lot of money into Arkham Horror. So
and that L5R game too. But I must say, the community, the Genesys community, and all of the awesomeness that I see out there. Don't worry about it, FFG. We got ourselves covered. For sure.
Yeah. We do have one member of our Nerds International community that will only play official stuff, though. He's really got to get over that and start playing because there's so many good fan documents out there.
Oh, I know. It's really good.
So, as far as our email, again, I announced that we would be doing a feedback show, which will be our next show when Stefan returns to us. And we'll go over some rather long messages that we've received from several of our good listeners.
Mm-hmm. All of you are good listeners. Only some of you write us really long ones. Select few long ones.
Yeah, I really wanted to approach, for today's show topic, I really wanted to approach how we created our machina for our Primordial Machina setting. So going into how we created vehicles, which touches on the email that we received from Ty Prunty previously. And I kind of felt like we didn't really give him a sufficient answer last time, because his question was, how would you build or make a mech Zoid in the game from first step to last?
Yeah, and we're going to come close to, I don't know if we're going to be going through step by step, but we're going to peel back the onion that is Tony's head and see what he was thinking of when he was putting together some of those.
You had an onion right. There's this really
many layers
there.
And layers.
And once you're exposed to it, you may cry. So
we'll save that for another time.
So we have no feedback, we have no news, but we do have some 50 pieces of awesome.
Yes.
All right, welcome to 50 Pieces of Awesome. This is where Chris normally goes out on the interwebs and scours it for cool stuff for us all.
That's right.
But
I go to the end of it. I go to both ends of it. I try and hit both ends of the internet, but I'm changing it up this week.
Yeah.
Because, I want to give. I think the Finding the Narrative. We want to give a shout out to all you GMs, all you DMs, judges, castle keepers from Castles and Crusades, or Star Masters, or whatever you call yourselves, that run the game and you guys go the extra mile to make it fun for your players. Now, what do I mean by that? What's going the extra mile? Well, I was inspired by this because my DM, Dungeon Master, because we're playing the D Shift 7D game on Friday nights, he handmade, get this, a primordial earth elemental miniature. Has a 6-inch by 6-inch base. The thing stood a foot tall. He had made it out of freaking paper mache, man. Sculpted it and molded it, and he put little crystals all over the back of it. I didn't get a picture of it because I was so jaw-dropped. It was so jaw-droppingly awesome. That's one thing that that's what I mean by going the extra mile. And
I think he went the extra 10 miles with that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
He made it by hand, paper mache. That's
he
cool.
did. It was freaking awesome. He's got a 3D printer. And he's printed out big, like he printed out this Cthulhu-esque water elemental, because we're actually the 20th level characters and we're going after the big primordials because we have to get all our hearts. Well, there was like the old one, he called it, and it was like this Cthulhu-esque looking monster, and printed it out, painted it. That's making this campaign feel epic when you pull stuff in like that.
That sounds cool.
What other things would good GMs do?
Well, I'm drawn to what Eric Lamoureux, our buddy, did last year at Con of the Cop, and the piece that he did for that, where he created this smoke cloud with fire inside of it.
Yeah.
By using, I think he used steel wool and put a red light inside of it. It's just amazing looking.
Yeah.
Amazing miniatures. He did terrain. And then I've been in games. You know, I was in a game when I was in the Marine Corps. I was in a game that the GM did these amazing handouts. They were I don't know where he got vellum, but he got vellum paper.
What?
He singed the edges with lemon juice and made them look like really ancient. These ancient scrolls that we were collecting.
That's
and
awesome.
he handmade, sealed them in wax. He did all this in a Marine Corps barracks. The wax he used was a boot polish.
Dude.
And he put the seal in it, and I don't know where the seal came from. He never showed it to me, but it was this real ornate seal. It was one of the coolest handouts I've ever received as a player. Just the way it was all written in calligraphy. He hand wrote it. Apparently, he knew calligraphy, so he hand wrote them all in calligraphy.
Oh wow!
These scrolls were supposed to be like 10th level spells, so they're like super super powerful scrolls, and we had to collect all of these scrolls. It was pretty bad. That's
pretty awesome.
So when we found one, like he'd put it out on the table. And then it was like, oh, I want that scroll. You know?
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and those are extreme examples of DMs going the 10 extra miles or 1,000 extra miles. I must admit, I am a lazy GM. I'm a lazy DM as well. But there are those, I have my moments. And I think at Con and a Cobb year before last, I had some handouts for you guys. Yeah, so, print out little handouts. Even going so far as creating a homebrewed campaign setting or a homebrewed adventure. And Tony, kudos to you, bud, because a lot of your stuff that we've been running through is all homebrewed, coming out of your own noggin. I know you have to spend time on it, and I appreciate it. And I know the guys appreciate it too. So it's those examples. If you're just wanting to do just that little extra to make it fun, because that's what this is all about. It's all about having fun. It really is. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate. I think you do a heck of a job yourself, buddy. Don't sell yourself short. And we have a lot, and I'll tell you, in our Nerds International community, we have a lot of guys that do just that. They do a lot of their own work and run their own adventures in very different settings and game systems, and each one is uniquely awesome. So, to those guys, and to all of you GMs out there, DMs, judges, castle keepers, star masters, oh gosh, what's the last one? There's another one. Storytellers.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. All of you out there, wherever you are and whatever you prefer to be called, you know who you are. You go that extra mile to make the game more fun, and we would like to award you 50 pieces of awesome.
All right, everybody. Open your books of Genesis, actually your book of Genesis, to page, oh crap,
220.
220, thank you, Tony. 220, because we are in the vehicle garage. That's the name of our episode, by the way, where we are going to be talking about creating the vehicles for our games, and specifically, we're going to be talking about how we're doing it Primordial Machina style.
Right.
So where do we start on this page here with vehicles? I mean, we're talking vehicles.
There isn't much. I mean, you just got to know what the important parts of a vehicle are. You have your vehicle's handling, its max speed, its silhouette, the defense, the armor, the hull trauma system strain.
Yeah.
All those, every vehicle has to have those components.
Yeah. And handling affects your piloting checks. Based on a rating, you're either adding a boost die or adding a setback die, or nothing at all if you're handling a 0, right?
And your speeds will affect really not much, but in some of the other rules that we may be adding. Yeah,
and they simplified it, I think, in this. I think there were different speeds, and I think your speed will affect how fast you can move between range bands.
Yep.
And then if you're making piloting checks through things that have obstacles, you know, if you're
Speed will matter.
Speed will matter.
Right. So, and then, you know, your defense is kind of like your shields, particle shields, ablative armor, those kinds of things that like, you know, if you're thinking of a mech, which what we're really talking about here, you're thinking of, you know, sometimes mechs and machina will have actual big mecha-sized shields like a man would hold in combat, and that will have a defense rating. And then your armor is your soak. So when you're dealing with vehicle combat, you're strictly dealing with armor for soak. It doesn't have a, you know, you can call it soak rating, but really it's called the armor.
Then your hull trauma, that's going to be the wounds equivalent, if you will, for a vehicle. And then your system strain will be the strain of your vehicle. Your, you know, if your electrical systems get shut out or overloaded, or if you punch somebody in the chest, right, and they're in a machina or whatever, you know, jarring them a bit, you know, you can do some strain and whatever. So that's what that represents. Well, that's a kick-ass picture, by the way, on page 220 there of that mech.
Right.
Of that, spider mech? Is that like multiple legs? It kind of looks like it.
Yeah, it looks like it's got 4 at least.
Yeah,
that's that, and that kind of, you know, we can kind of use that as our inspiration. And so moving into, you know, what we would do, then we would look at how we wanted to build these, and the only way to look at how we want to build is to start looking at other things that are already existing in the game. So, you know, skipping ahead to some of these sample vehicles.
Do we want to mention, well, before that, do we want to mention the personal scale versus vehicle scale stuff?
Yeah, if you want to. Go ahead.
So your armor rating is your soak, right? So on a vehicle scale, that's actually equal to 10 times a personal scale in soak, right? So you have personal scale weapons, vehicle scale weapons, and your soak, your armor is considered like that rating is 10 times your whatever's in the personal scale. So that brought in some challenges for us on the mech scale, because the mechs seem to blur the lines between a personal scale versus a vehicle scale, right?
So then we got into, okay, what did we have the mechs have vehicle scale armor, but then they had personal scale weapons, and then looking at any kind of spell, you know, we wanted in our system, we wanted spell casting to go toe to toe with mechs, you know, and so we were looking at that, and oh my gosh, when you started putting, you know, spell casting toe to toe with a machina, it was a no-brainer. The machina was going to win, because there's no way a spell could do that much damage,
right? Unless we gave it, and we were even throwing around the idea of giving spells the breach quality. And
then we did give spells the breach quality, but we made it a rare thing with the Fey Crystal, the Golden Fey Crystal, which gives you the ability to, or sorry, it was the Blood Fey. I can't remember which one of them. I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head, but one of them grants the breach quality to the spell when it's used as an implement.
And what breach does, that ignores 1 point of armor, which is 10 points of soak. Equivalent.
And that's where we got our idea. So we started looking at, okay, so if we give most of our weapons breach, so most of the vehicle weapons are breach, they're going to cut through people.
Right.
Because most people's soak is going to be 6 or less.
Yep.
And breach 1 gets you past 10 points of soak, so these vehicle weapons are going to cut through people anyway.
Yeah, you're basically ignoring their soak when it comes down to it. With the breach 1. Breach 2 seems a little extreme. but still awesome. If you think about it. But
well, if you're thinking big scale cannons.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had a challenge there, and I had an interesting way to come around that challenge. And I don't know if everyone's going to like it. It does bend the as-written vehicle rules considerably.
But it seemed to work for us.
But it seemed to work for our setting. Mm-hmm. So we went with it. We ran with it. This was what we play tested the most.
Yeah.
Was these rules and how to get personal scale combat and vehicle scale combat to work toe and toe, because we had an airship with cannons, we have machina with autocannon type
like shoulder mounted grenade launchers and cannons, right?
Yeah. We have one type of machina that's outfitted with this huge sword and shield, and then you have spellcasters flying around the battlefield on spectral mounts, shooting spells at people, and it to make it dynamic and fun for everyone, and not basically rocket tag where if you're hit by one shot you're dead.
Didn't want it too deadly, though. We didn't want it to be like fire bolts or whatever, fireballs or whatever bouncing off of people, right? Kind of wanted,
So a well-placed spell with a lot of success is going to damage a mech. And that was what I, kind of had as my
That's what it feels
measure.
Right. Yeah.
So we came up with this system, and that is armor for one of our machina is going to be 5 times its silhouette plus its brawn rating. So
and it will be, and it's not going to be, that armor rating isn't going to be, it's going to be a personal scale soak.
It's personal scale soak.
Yeah.
So we basically made all of our mechs and machina personal scale. If you can't bring the magic up to weapon scale, bring everything down to personal scale.
Well said.
And so, and that seemed to work really well for us.
Yeah.
So I looked at some existing examples. Now we have, for my airship, it was real easy. For our airship for the game, all I did was look at the 3-masted frigate on page 231, and I gave it the ability to fly. It wasn't...
That was kind of a no-brainer, if you think about it.
Yep. It was not really a hard thought process there.
Right.
So, and I was looking, I'm like, okay, so we've got four-door vehicles, and then we've got aerospace superiority fighters. Those really don't fit as a mech.
Right.
So,
but if you saw Mortal Engines, though, you could kind of use those fighters that they had at the end of Mortal Engines, right?
And I did create air vehicles for the Air Kingdom, the city in our game, that use the air superiority fighter as a template.
As a kind of your baseline, and then you can go some that are a little beefier if you're in an F-18, or if you're in like a I don't know, one of the air
A-10 Warthog,
or a Warthog, right? You'd want to bump up the hit, the hull trauma and the armor,
Right.
Cool.
So, so I had to go to another source, and always we have the great uncle of Genesis, the Star Wars game.
Not the creepy uncle, though. It's not the creepy uncle. It's the cool uncle.
It's the cool uncle.
That gives you a beer, right?
Right.
Yeah, when you're underage.
Right. And
us on the Finding the Narrative Podcast do not condone underage drinking.
Yeah, what he said. All right, so...
I figured I'd have to say that. Oops.
Good disclaimer, buddy.
Sure. Only 5 people are listening to this anyway, so it doesn't matter.
And honestly, what children are listening to it? We say fuck on this show.
We do say fuck sometimes. We might say fuck.
They shouldn't be listening to us.
No.
All right. But anyhow, so I what exists in Star Wars that kind of already, I was like, oh, they have walkers. I'll look there.
Yeah.
Well, they
Not so
go.
much.
Those things don't really give me that feel of a personal one-on-one mech.
Yeah.
Well, trigger. Okay. I want one-on-one mecha combat or squadrons of machina running around a battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
What does that remind me of? It reminds me of a Star Wars dogfight between TIE fighters and X-Wings.
Yep.
So, bam. I found my area where I wanted to be. So I started looking at the X-Wing, the Y-Wing, and the three basic ones from the original movie, the X-Wing, the Y-Wing, and the TIE Fighter. Those are going to be my baseline for the things that I want to do. And, so had those thoughts. And then what else did I have? So started looking at speeds for these vehicles. Now, there's vehicle speeds. There's rules on vehicle speeds on page 221 in the Genesys core rulebook. And it's talking about so each round a vehicle moves a certain distance based on its current speed. The pilot's job in theory is just to control this momentum and keep the occupants alive. So when your character is piloting, they have to steer. And so at the beginning of each or end of your turn each round, your vehicle just moves a number of range bands based on the speed that it's running or that it's moving. Right. So I had to stop and think about, okay, how fast do I want a bunch of steampunk mechs moving around a battlefield? Well, thinking about it, we don't want them. So all the Star Wars ships are really fast. So what differentiates my machina from those is they're going to be a little more sluggish. So the speeds for your mechs, I went with speeds of 1 to 2, depending on the mech. Then I was looking at, and then I was looking at their handlings. The handling of the Star Wars ones is, again, these are space superiority fighters that fly like dogfighting airplanes. And you could talk about the physics of that until you're blue in the face, but really their handlings they're built to be more maneuverable than you would say a running mech or a jumping machina. So looking at that, I went, okay, your baseline handling for anything. It tells you in the core book, again on page 221, a combat walker is -2 handling.
Yeah.
Do we want everyone piloting a machina to constantly have setback dice? Well, no. This is This is a system where there's a world where there's been hundreds of years of this technology.
Right.
So
though it would encourage them to get to pick up, what is it, the what's that talent that removes 2 setback dice to a non-combat check?
Knack for it.
But then again, when we're talking about our combat checks, it wouldn't necessarily apply, right?
Right. And we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so looking at it, I went, okay, so our baseline for Machina is going to be 0. Your standard, so I want my standard. So when I look at my standard, what's the standard for Star Wars? What's the iconic ship? I went, that's the X-Wing.
Yep.
That's your standard. That's your gold standard. That's your baseline. That's what's going to be, something's going to be slightly better than that. Something's going to be slightly worse than that. But that's where you start. That's where you're going to start.
Yep.
So that's handling wise, your X-Wing, or in this case, the available Machina for beginning players, I wanted to have 2 options. And so I was looking at the Junkernaut. It's what I called it. It's going to be basically one that you have built or someone built from leftover parts of other Machina or of the technology from beforehand left over by the Fey God Kings. Either way, its handling is going to be 0 for starting. So looking at our next step, so we wanted to look at the silhouettes. Now, your players stand at 6 to 8, 10 feet tall, around in there, that's silhouette 1, right?
Yep.
Anything taller than that, into 20 feet tall, is going to be silhouette 2.
Yep.
So that's right where we wanted our Machina. It was right in that range of silhouette 2. Maybe some large individually built robot vehicles that a team of people would operate. You could see this big, thinking the Spider from Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
It takes a whole
Yep.
team of people to operate. That's going to be like a silhouette 4 or 5 vehicle.
Something like that. Yep. It's going to be big.
So the ones that players are going to get and the ones that you're going to find on minions are going to be these simple silhouette 2 Machina.
What speed did you put on for the Junkernauts?
So the Junkernaut, I gave it a speed of 2.
Speed of 2? Cool.
Yep.
All right.
And in fact, all 3 of the Machina that I built for this
Speed 2?
playtest were all speed 2. Yeah.
All right. Rock on.
So the Junkernaut, we're talking silhouette 2, speed 2, handling 0. We've got its base characteristics. So now, looking at the armor, I figured, okay, this is a mech. These are Machina.
Mm-hmm.
These are going to be These things are going to be using hand to hand, so they need to have a brawn rating.
Yep.
And this is a big machine, very strong. It's going to be used to pick heavy things up. So the base for a Machina is going to be 4, brawn 4. That's something that very few human beings are going to achieve. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it seemed right. 4 would be the perfect brawn for a base Machina. A better one would be 5 or 6, and that's about it. Because you think, what is strength? What is a brawn of 6 in Genesis that we know of so far? And the only thing I can think of right off the top of my head
the big
is
dragon.
The ogres.
Ogres, big dragon. I think the dragons are 6 as well, 5 or 6. They're strong. Yeah.
But that's as far as it goes. So you want to be able to customize your Machina to be stronger. Then we want to have our baseline a little lower. So our baseline's 4.
Yep.
Then you're going to have some nicer ones at 5. And then like the super awesome best brawn that your Machina could have is 6.
Yeah.
All right. So, and the reason why I wanted to have their own brawn rating is because this isn't power armor. You're not using your brawn rating when you're using a hand-to-hand combat. Because one of the coolest things about mecha is mecha fights.
Yeah.
People punching each other and the mechs beating robot fighting, It's rock'em sock'em robots each other. Just
Yep.
So we had to have that element, so they had to have their own brawn ratings. So that helped me again, like I said before, with the armor and silhouette. So for back to the Junkernaut, my formula was the silhouette is 5. Or sorry, silhouette was 2, and the armor is 5 per silhouette. So it's going to be plus the brawn. So ended up my armor rating for the Junkernaut ended up being 14.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 times the silhouette plus brawn.
Yep, and again, that 14 is a personal scale damage.
Personal
so
scale.
If you have somebody who can do, over 14 damage with like a spell or something, then you'll be able to start damaging a Junkernaut.
Right.
Which puts it in the realm of possibilities.
Yes, puts it in the realm of possibility. You hit with a really powerful spell with your implements. Mm-hmm. Adding pierce to it, you can start damaging these mechs with good spells. You hit them with a lightning bolt, they're going to hurt.
Mm-hmm. Even like a big warhammer. Somebody has I think I built one that has a base damage of like 12 or 14. And then you add your successes on top of that, boom, you're good.
Yep.
All right.
But we didn't want our Machina to be pushovers.
Nope.
So, and that's where I started looking at, I looked at my X-Wing, and I thought, the X-Wing's got a hull of 10. Well, that's not going to work, because that means if my Machina is hit with a Machina weapon, it's going to be wiped out.
Done. Right, with one with one shot.
So that's not going to work. So started looking at it, and I'm like, oh, well, this is simple. Just double it.
Yep.
So
20 feels pretty good.
20 does feel good. It feels like you could handle 3 good solid hits, which is the way it works also in hand-to-hand combat. In regular combat, you can normally survive 2 to 3, even 4 hits. Sometimes good solid hits.
Yep.
And in this case, the Junkernaut, and then I didn't again with 20 hull trauma. Then looking at system strain, there's no reason to change it.
No.
Stay at the 10 that an X-Wing would have. And that gave me now a Junkernaut, which is my baseline vehicle, Silhouette 2, Speed 2, Armor of 14 on personal scale, a hull trauma of 20, a system strain of 10, and a handling of 0. Great. I give it a base weapon, a single cannon. That cannon did like 10 damage, I believe. Let me look just to be sure. Yep, the shoulder cannon, 10 damage, and voila. It's and when you put a vehicle weapon on, keep in mind you do need to mention where what it is located at, what its firing arc is going to be.
Yeah. So
that when you're looking at the position of vehicles on your vehicles, the weapons can't fire outside the zones. So they're firing zones. So it would be on the forward firing arc. It has a critical of 4, 10 damage, uses the gunnery skill, and is usable out to long range. And it has breach 1.
Cool.
So you now have your shoulder-mounted cannon on a Machina that is capable of pounding another Machina into submission, or and then so that was my Junkernaut. Now the last thing I wanted with the Junkernaut is this is something that's been hodgepodge together. So the last thing I need to list for this vehicle and for any vehicle that we're going to have in this setting, because we will have attachments that you can use, be able to modify it, put on, make it better handling, put on more armor, make it put on more weapons of different types, make it more modifiable, increase the brawn rating.
Yep.
All those things, it needs some hard points. Well, the Junkernaut, I like the idea of it being this hodgepodge piece of machinery.
Yeah, that you could kit bash the hell out of.
I gave it 6, a walloping 6 hard points, so the players could really customize the crap out of them. So that is one of our starting Machina. If you make a Machina pilot in our game, you're going to start with one of these in your beginning gear.
Yep.
So now I wanted to have an option. So I created another one. And Chris kind of helped me with this one.
Yep.
Because we wanted our, when we started our setting, we wanted our dwarves to have had this technology for so long.
Of course we do, because dwarves rock.
Right. So we created the Dwarven War Mech.
Yep.
Which then brought to mind this melee weapon using mecha.
Sword and board, baby.
Shield. So sword and board.
Yeah.
That's right. So where did we start, Chris?
Well, we kind of started with kind of comparing it to the Junkernaut, right? Because that's going to be our baseline, and we wanted this thing to be a little beefier. It's still going to be a Silhouette 2 vehicle. Still wanted it, and we still have a speed of 2. It's not going to be really slower, though. Being a dwarven mech, maybe it does have to be speed 1. It gave it a brawn of 5, so bumped up the brawn just a little bit. So that would make its armor rating 5 times a Silhouette of 2 plus the brawn of 5 will give it an armor rating of 15. And that's personal scale. And I do believe the hull trauma and the system strain is also personal scale too, right? Yeah. And then the hull trauma, then Tony was thinking, well, this, like we said, we have X-Wings, Y-Wings, and TIE fighters, right? Well, this is going to be our X-Wing.
Our Y-wing.
Sorry, our Y-wing. It's going to be a little tougher to handle, but it's going to have a bit more hull. You could takes a little more damage. So we doubled the hull rating of an X-wing, which was
Y-wing.
12. Sorry, of a Y-wing. I'm reading the damn document right here. What the hell?
I'm here to help you, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So that makes the hull trauma 24. And again, kept the same system strain of 10. And we wanted it to be tougher to handle, so to have a handling of -1. So you're going to be set back die all your piloting checks with this. And then, of course, we gave it a sword and a shield.
All
so
right.
we'll have a defense rating.
Right, and this is a big vehicle-sized shield, so it's going to have a forward firing arc defense of 2.
Sweet. Yep. And then we said for the sword, it's going to have a base damage of 12. So, we were thinking of 10 being the base damage for our mech weapons, right? And this, and because the brawn is a little beefier, right? So we'll start with a 12 damage, breach 1 for the sword, for
critical
this mech,
of 3,
and a critical of 3. Which I need to write that down. Make a note of that.
So now we have this sword and board wielding, but we gave it something else too, and that is because it needs a ranged weapon. It has mounted on its shoulder a clockwork grenade launcher. The clockwork grenade can be found in the Genesis core rulebook under the steampunk setting. On let's see, I think that's on page 154 in the core rulebook, and these are bulky canisters that contain simple boiler heat combined by 2 chemicals, and I like the idea of having this little canister launcher sitting on the shoulder of our dwarven machina, and this uses it's a personal scale weapon. The clockwork grenade uses gunnery though, because this was mounted, and it's going to have a base damage of 8. It has a crit of 3, but it only goes out to short range, but it has blast 5, burn 1, and limited ammo 10.
Limited ammo 10. So why would this be only short range? Why couldn't it be medium? It should be medium range, I would think.
It's a launcher. Yeah, you're right.
Right, because
short range would be where you could throw it.
Yeah, range light, short. So range light is what you use to throw. That's right. That's what they have in here. So gunnery. Yeah, so I would think
we're going to change it to gunnery and medium range.
Yeah, right. There we go.
And limited ammo was going to be 10.
So 10 of them?
Yeah, you only have 10 of them.
Actually, you know what I would like? You know what would be cool? Is to have it limited ammo 6. And 6. have it look like a frickin' 6-shooter, what do you call it? Like gun. Like a pistol from the Wild West, but it's a big frickin' gun.
I hear you. I got you. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Pretty sweet.
Audible, we're calling it. We're changing
calling it.
See,
Audible.
this is what you do when you when you're crafting. Sometimes you find something that it changes. So we're going back to the drawing board. We're changing it so that it's a limited ammo 6 now.
Maybe it was because I was watching Fear the Walking Dead today, and the guy has and one of the guys in there is a gunslinger, and I just saw him. Anyways.
No, that's cool. All right, so so they're slightly less damaging than your average, like a cannon, and they don't go out to long range like a cannon. But with blast of 5, you can mow down a whole line of troops with this thing.
Yeah. You want to soften them up a little bit before you go in there and wipe them with the sword. Yeah. So as you're running. Sweet.
So, and then this would be awesome. Our other player option for the beginning.
War mechs. Nice.
But,
or mechs.
Or Machina.
Machina, the Machinas.
Yeah, the Dwarven War Mech and the Junkernaut. So,
yes.
Well, we brought in giant melee weapons, so I kind of want to talk about this before we go on to the minion vehicle, the TIE Fighter version. Yeah. And that was what we haven't discussed is how do giant melee weapons work? I mean, think about it. Are you using your melee skill? Are you using piloting? What do you do?
Yes, both, Tony. Both.
Yes, both.
Yep.
You will use the brawn of your machina plus your piloting skill to use in hand-to-hand combat.
For melee. For your melee.
And
weapons.
you will add in your handling into this check.
Yes, absolutely you will.
But this becomes a combat check. And this is where Chris said we'll get back to this. Mm-hmm. So if you have a knack for it, piloting machina, it does not apply to hand-to-hand combat.
Exactly. Because it is kind of different. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see you applying it.
Right.
You know.
And so your what is the damage of a mecha fist going to do? It's going to be equal to the brawn rating plus successes rolled. What's the damage of a mecha stomp going to be? It's going to be the brawn rating plus successes rolled. Now you throw in these giant melee weapons. It's going to be the weapon. Actually, is going to be the brawn rating of the mecha plus machina plus a X amount.
Yeah. So for the sword, I mean, I think it comes into 7 plus your brawn.
Yes.
Or brawn plus 7. Yeah.
Because it's a huge sword.
Hell yeah, it is.
So, again, I look at, what's a sword normally? It's what? Brawn plus 2?
Something like that. Yeah, I think so. Axes are plus 6 or plus 3.
Yeah, and a warhammer is plus 4.
Daggers plus 1. Warhammer might be plus 4, might be plus 3.
So really, you're going to if you're thinking a dagger, you probably would put it at plus 5 or 6 for a big dagger, machina dagger.
I would think a big machina dagger. It would probably be 5 plus brawn. Yeah.
And then an axe, a big machina axe, maybe would be.
8.
And this is just spitballing here. That'd probably be an 8. And then your big maul, huge maul would be probably an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, I would think so.
I wouldn't go any higher than that.
No. And again, we're looking at the armor ratings, and you want combat to you want to be able to take a couple of hits before you go down. It'd be nice to do a single hit and take somebody out, which could be possible. Could be.
Yeah, with the right modifiers, with the right combat check.
With the right crit, which allows you to swing again, right? Isn't there one in there that allows you to do the same attack again? Boom. Yeah.
With a lucky strike.
With a lucky strike, that's true.
The lucky strike, you could add in your brawn rating again. Oh! Or even your character's cunning if you were a thiefy type. Yeah.
Yep.
So, it that works. All right.
Yeah. And that feels like mecha fighting, right?
Right.
Piloting and brawn together, just kind of doing it instead of, having a melee skill.
But you already have 2 skills with your, because you think about it, in hand-to-hand combat, you're dealing with basically 2 skills. You're either choosing melee or brawn to use, and then you're using range light, range heavy, one of those, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you really are only going to have those 2 skills for combat. Well, in this case, we have gunnery for the range,
and piloting for melee.
Yep.
Yeah, which simplifies it a little bit.
Yep. All right.
Cool.
And then, of course, I like the idea of, because these are mecha. One other little house rule that I put down, because these are machina running around the battlefield, and they're. I like the idea of using speed modifiers to add setback dice to ranged attacks.
Ooh, what do you mean there?
So whenever your opponent is going 1 speed faster than you.
It's a setback die?
It's a setback die. Whenever your opponent is going 1 speed slower than you, it's a boost die.
Cool. On your gunnery checks.
On your gunnery checks.
On your gunnery checks to hit them in range.
Yep.
That's cool.
And that's pretty much that's cumulative. Obviously, if they're going 3 speeds faster than you, that's 3 setback dice to shoot at them, and so on and so forth. So that makes if you have characters that are capable of moving at a high speed, say with a summoned flying mount, well, that makes them a little harder to hit on the battlefield.
Yep. Cool.
So, and that kind of really worked really well for Primordial Machina. I'm not going to say it's going to work for every system, every setting, but it worked really well for ours.
Yep.
So the last one.
Yeah.
The last one we have here, is so I created the equivalent of the TIE Fighter, and who are my Nazis in our setting? That's the city of Calder.
Yep.
The Calder, they have their shock troops running around, which is the Iron Praetorians, and I'm like, okay, what do I call this? Well, I liked the idea that you have kind of a German, so I went with the Ironbound Jaeger.
Right. You got to put an A and an E in there, just because.
Yeah.
That's more German.
Ironbound Jaeger will be a minion vehicle. So I start looking at, minion vehicle, what do I mean by that? Well, a minion vehicle should be something that could be hit one time and blown up, like a TIE Fighter.
Yep.
So I go back to my little formula of, so it's silhouette 2, just like the others. Its speed is going to be 2. Now, I know the TIE Fighters are a little faster and a little more agile.
Right.
So, but we're going to cover that on the handling side.
Yep.
So we don't want Machina running around the battlefield at speed 3 and covering 3 range bands in a single bound, unless they're specialized.
Maybe.
Unless they're specialized or customized. So this is for minions. So let's keep it at speed 2.
Yep.
And then that gives me my formula for hull trauma, which is going to be, or the armor, which the armor was going to be armor rating of silhouette times 5 plus the brawn. Now my base brawn for Machina is 4, so it's got an armor of 14, personal scale. And then I'm looking at the hull trauma, and I'm like, the hull trauma for a TIE Fighter is 6. And my system so far has been to double. But I'm looking at my base weapon damage for Machina, and I said that was 10.
Yep.
So I'm at a bit of a conundrum. No, I'm not. I just changed the hull trauma to 10. It was going to be 12, but I'm like, nah, it's 10. Yep. That way one of these guys can be taken out with a well-placed shot.
Yep.
And then I looked at the TIE Fighter system strain and went, hey, 8 system strain on a minion vehicle sounds great. But I wanted these guys to be agile, so I left them with a handling of +1. And then throw on a light cannon, and we're good to go. That cannon is going to be your basic cannon, which is a 10 damage cannon. It's got a critical damage? 4. Yep, 10 damage, got a range of long, crit 4, breach 1. Simple as that. And because this is a minion vehicle, and I didn't cover this on the Dwarven War Mech, I'll go back to that. Because this is a minion vehicle, it shouldn't be easily customized. So it's only going to have 1 hard point.
Yep.
And I go back to the Dwarven War Mech, because we outfitted it with extra strength, and we outfitted it with a little bit more armor.
Yep, a little more hull.
It shouldn't have a lot of hard points. It shouldn't be customizable as our Junkernaut.
Right.
So we left that with 3 hard points for customization.
Yep. Still a little room to customize it. Maybe get rid of that. Maybe get rid of the handling. Get the handling down to a 0 instead of -1.
crank its brawn up to 6.
Crank brawn up to 6, right?
Or add on another weapon.
Yeah.
Another shoulder-mounted weapon.
That's right. Maybe even link them.
Or upgrade your sword board to Axon board.
Or Axon board. Or get one of these auto rotary guns. Auto fire, cumbersome 4, prepare 1. Yeah, baby. Or maybe even a death ray. I'm just looking at the steampunk weapons again.
And those are all great inspiration for what we did here. So, that's where we ended up with our minion vehicle being it's a silhouette 2, speed 2, hull trauma 10, armor of 14, system strain 8, and handling of +1.
Right.
And so I hope Ty, that's how we built vehicles for our setting. That's how we built Machina. Yeah. If you want them to be a little more advanced and have super mechs, this is a baseline. You can build on it from there to do mechs and Zoids.
Yep. And remember, our setting isn't like battle mech, which it's all about. Like, you have a chest area, you have 2 arms and legs and heat and all this other stuff. And I kind of want to make this mech worthy of combat, right? I mean, it gives us the feel that, we got these mechs out here that are firing their shoulder weapons, running into melee attacks with big-ass swords, and still doing stuff, and not making it too complicated to play the game and to keep having fun with it. So I think well done.
Chris did point out previously that there is someone who did a BattleTech conversion, or is working on a BattleTech conversion. If you really want to go seek out a source material for that, those folks have been working on it.
Yeah, there was like I think there was a thread, a bunch of them going back and forth on that. They did really, really, really good there.
Well, when you think about those mechs, they're like 50 feet tall. They're way bigger than our Machina.
Yeah, and right.
Yeah,
I mean,
so they'll have
each section has their, and I think these guys were going into their own. Each section has hull trauma, armor, system strain, and what was really slick is they were using system strain for your quote unquote heat values. If anybody's familiar with BattleTech, right? I mean, you're firing your weapons and it brings up heat and such. So yeah, they did pretty good over there. I don't know where.
Yeah, and I did give that a thought of doing system strain for heat, but at the end of the day, it really just bogged our game down. We wanted it to keep fast-paced action. We wanted that steampunky, high adventure.
Yep.
When I think steampunk, high fantasy steampunk, I think Eberron, whatever you want to call it, from D-Ship 7D. And one of the things that everything was fast-paced in that. It was all about the action. And that's what we wanted to keep the feel of this system, this setting.
Yeah, I think we nailed it. I do. I really think. I think we got something pretty good here. Yeah. This is fun for me. And it was fun for the guys and gal on Saturday nights.
Yeah, we got one more session. Hopefully this Saturday. So.
Sweet. All right. Well then, we're not going to be we don't have a setting the tone this week. So let's just get right into Advantageous Threats. You ready for it, buddy?
Yeah, man. Let's kick it.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Advantageous Threats, where tonight we are going to be a Primordial Machina themed advantageous threat here. So, Tony, would you like to go first, or would you like me to?
I think I'd like to hear about yours.
All right. Well, I am playing Dorn Warax, a dwarven mech pilot that is running into melee with his sword and board. So, granted, his last name is Warax, but he's wielding a sword in his mech. And he's going against a rival enemy who has Adversary 1, who's also in a mech. Now, As you guys remember, he's in his Dwarven war mech, which has a brawn of 5. He has 2 ranks in piloting. And the rival has an adversary 1, so this is going to be a 2 yellow, 1 green.
Nope.
3 green. Thank you for editing that on the fly for me, buddy. And then adversary 1. So one of the 2 purples for a melee attack is going to be upgraded.
Okay.
So that's what we have. Now, I did say I was running into melee, and the thing is, I have a handling of -1, so I have to add a setback die there.
Correct.
And does this guy have his own shield, maybe? I didn't put that in here, but just rival.
I'm going to say he is 2 piloting a Dwarven war mech.
Nice. Does
So
he have
he's
a shield?
actually... He has the same shield you do.
Woohoo!
Which
So
is
that's
going to be
2 defense, right?
2 defense. That's
I have
correct.
to get out another black, Okay. That's a nice little pool that we've got going here. And you
Now
know
you're
what?
both moving at the same speed, so no speed differential.
Yep. I see us going towards each other like in the anime, right? Like, "Wah!" with our swords on the side. He might have an axe, who knows, right? Running at each other. And you know what? I'm going to spend a story point because this is the first time I have actually rolled for a war mech, a Dwarven war mech. I've never had a dwarf in a war mech before. And this is fucking cool, I must say.
Now, you could also spend 2 strain. Now, you're using in vehicle combat, you're
True.
using 1 maneuver to automatically steer the vehicle.
Yeah, so you know what? I am going to aim. I would like to aim.
So if you wish to aim, you'd have to spend 2 strain.
I will. Now, question though, Tony. That would be the pilot taking the strain, not the...
Correct.
So, here, let's back up just a bit. So if I wanted to run 2 range bands, I would take system strain to maneuver, to move, to do another maneuver, right, on the mech itself, and not me as a pilot, or do the pilots take that as well? I can't remember.
Well, rules as written, the pilot and the vehicle.
Yep, both take the strain for doing... Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool.
With the double maneuver.
With the double maneuver.
But for aiming, it's just the pilot.
Yeah, I'm close enough where we're able to close the gap because we're running at each other. I'm spending the extra. Okay, so just wanted to throw that out there, everybody. And does this pool look good? I got 3 yellow, 2 green, and my blue boost die. I have a red, a purple, and 3 setback dice.
I love it. Rainbow pool.
Rainbow pool. Only thing we need now is the force die. Oh, wait a second. That cool uncle is calling us, right? Oh, holy threat, Batman. But whole hell of a lot of success. Okay, so I'm counting up my threats. A couple of my blacks come up negative. My aim didn't do squat. That came up blank, too. I have a net 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 successes.
So you're going to do 17 damage.
I'm going to do 17 damage to this guy. However, 2 threat.
2 threat.
2 threat.
All right. So 17 damage, and another Dwarven war mech.
Breach 1.
Breach 1. So you're going to get past 10 of his 15 soak. So
12 damage.
He soaks 5, doing 12 damage. That's half his hull trauma in one single blow.
Yep. And I can see this blow. I see him putting his shield up, and me just coming down on the shield, and the shield actually knocking him in the face, doing a lot of the damage to like that, right? And his arm just hurting.
But when you came down, then here's where your threat comes in.
Yep.
You came down, you were coming with the point of the blade.
Oh shit!
So your blade goes right through his shield.
Okay.
And he maneuvers and rips the blade right out of your mecha's hand.
Of course he does. Nice.
So it's hanging there on his shield.
On his shield that he's getting ready to hit me with. I'm gonna get hit with the pommel of my sword in the face. That's awesome. All right, rock on.
All right. So in this case, I chose to go with the path of the GM, since that's what I do mostly.
Yep.
So I'm GMing a game of Primordial Machina, and I have several phalanx, that's minion groups of 4, of Praetorian ironbound Jaeger Machina pilots from the city of Calder. And they are attacking the PC's airship, the Banshee Gale, as it is fleeing from the desert ruins of Oth-Khazar with a load of Fey Crystal.
All right.
So, using the minion rules, my gunnery is a skill for Praetorian Machina pilots.
Yep.
And so, because the minion groups have 4 in them, that's an agility of 3, with the upgraded 3 times for a total of 3 yellow dice on the positive side. And then at long range, so it's going to be 3 purple for range. And then I add in the defense of the airship for a total, which is 2.
Which they would redo their defenses and move the 2 defenses in the back.
Right. And then they're moving at speed 3. So the speed differential will give me a setback die. So right now I've got a 3 yellow, 3 purple, and 3 black setback dice pool.
Woohoo.
So,
all right. And me as a player, I could say I might flip a story point here, but no, that's okay.
Because my guys are minions, they are shooting on the run. They cannot aim because minions cannot voluntarily take strain.
That's right.
So they won't be aiming. But they are firing at a Silhouette 5 ship, and my mecha are Silhouette 2. And
what does that do?
If you're firing at a large silhouette, you're going to get a boost die.
Is it a boost? Or is it a...
I can't remember. What is it?
Well, there's a speed advantage. I do remember there is a size differential in the basic rules, I believe.
Basic combat, yeah.
I think it's more of a... You reduce the difficulty.
I thought it was boost dice. But
it could be. We could be.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say on the fly, because that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what you do.
GM.
There you go.
Size differences. Here it is. Size differences in silhouette in combat. I found it. So.
Because it's what we do. We just found
when a character makes an attack against a target's silhouette 2 or more points larger, they decrease the difficulty of the check by 1.
That's what I thought it was. Thought it was decrease the difficulty.
So I'm going to drop one of those purple dice.
Yeah, dude, do it.
All right. So, good thing I found it before I had to make it on the call, because I would have just given boost dice to them. But anyhow, they're 3 silhouettes larger than my ironbound, so we'll just reduce it by 1.
Sounds good to me.
Do you want to do anything to this
You're
pool?
Literally hitting the broadside of a barn almost.
Do you want to do anything to my pool?
No, that's okay.
Okay. We'll fire it up.
Do it.
All right, so the first phalanx, because I have 2 phalanxes, the first phalanx is going to be shooting, and I rolled 1 success and 1 failure. So those wash out.
Yep. Oh, nice.
Then I rolled
pew, pew,
4
pew.
advantage and 6 threat. So my net 2 threat.
So you're 2 threat. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say a few of their guns just jam because you're in the desert, man. So you're gonna get a setback die when you shoot again.
They're affected by sand. All right. All right.
Maybe.
Now the other minion group. All right. The other minion group is firing as well.
Hear those
Same
dice.
pool.
Listen to them.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
All right. And I got a triumph.
Oh no!
But I missed. I have net 1 triumph.
No successes, no nothing, just just you're left with a triumph.
Net a triumph.
Well, what do you want to do with that?
I think that some of the cargo falls overboard as they're banking the ship.
Some of the fake crystal, you mean?
Some of the fake crystal cargo. One of the crates of fake crystal falls overboard, lands in the sand.
Oh, Shiza.
Yeah.
Shiza. Awesome. Oh,
right,
that's
so
cool, man.
I could keep going for the other 2 minion groups because I said several, so that's like 3 or 4. But I'm good.
You got the fake. You got some of your fake crystal back. Yeah, that's cool.
All right.
Yeah. So that's mecha combat, everybody. Machina. Well, I see Dwarven mech pilot. I should call it a Machina pilot.
Yeah, you should have. He's changing the notes on the fly.
I'm changing the notes on the fly. Because if I change it, then it'll change in my head. If you type it, I'll change it. Yeah, so that's Machina combat, everybody. Primordial style. Are we ready to go home?
Yeah, it's been a long week for me. I think I should go home.
Let's do it. All right, well, that's our show, everybody. I want to do a shout out to those guys from West Virginia, Ben and Matt from the Imaginary Ramblings podcast. They talk really anything nerdy for about a half an hour, and they had our own Stefan Dragonspawn on there. I think their last one was like a week or so ago, where they talk about how old he is. Actually, they talk about more than that. They talk about how role-playing games have changed over the years. And since Stefan has been playing since the dinosaur Bones, right? He had bone dice back then, I think.
I think they made a joke about
Stefan.
him being Gary Gygax's babysitter.
Yes, they did. That's right. And you know what? Speaking of that, I haven't babysat Gygax myself, but I did watch the D&D cartoons with my daughters this weekend.
Oh, nice.
And, you little dungeon masters, Gary Gygax, right? Anyways, you could find those the imaginary ramblings on Podbean. And you find them on MeWe. They are Nerds-International community members, and pretty cool. Pretty cool podcast they got there. Well done, guys.
Okay. Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't remind everyone coming up in October that we have Con on the Cob. I don't know if Matt's going to make it this year, Matt from Imaginary Ramblings, but he'll be there in spirit.
Ooh, that's 4 months from now.
I know. And the Con on the Cob Kickstarter just closed up, so you'll have to order it for regular price. You can still do so. Order your ticket if you want to go through their website. Yeah.
Yep. And that's October 3rd through the 6th. I know Tony and we're going to show up on the 2nd, on the Wednesday. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep,
and
we're going to have Epic Smell Wars 2.
Yes.
And both of us will be fighting fully armed with our own CPAP masks.
That is true. So we can
to protect us.
Have Epic Smell Wars all night long. We won't smell anything. Don't want to test that out in theory, by the way.
No.
I really don't. Oh, by the way, guess what trailer I saw today?
I don't know.
Rambo Last Blood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can go on about watching that on your own.
Man, we're going to go see the Joker on Sunday, man, on that one. We're going to go do that. And any of you, if you're going to Con on the Cob, you're welcome to join us.
That's right. All right, so contact information. You can email us like people do at findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com.
And we'll have our email bag show next in a couple weeks with Stefan.
Yep. So if you get your emails in before that, we'll make sure we add them to that show. So you can also find us at Finding the Narrative on Facebook. That's myself and Stefan you can talk to over there. You find Finding the Narrative and Nerds International on MeWe. Stefan is all about the Twitter presence with @FTN_Genesys, and he will diligently watch that. And you can tell your friends to listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and on Spotify. So this is Tony saying, keep rolling them bones.
And this is Chris saying, don't forget to ask. Oh, no, that's not it. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. Remember the rule of cool, everybody, and just have fun. Good night.
And tell Stefan no boost dice.
Yes, and tell Stefan no boost dice.
Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast, is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned in this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. Copyright 2019, all rights reserved.